A little game I played as well, because I'd had a lot of long-term relationships, and I always found myself making sure I had one foot out. And I'm pretty sure it's connected to, having a father that wasn't really present or showing up for me. I'm pretty sure it was my way of keeping power, or like making sure no one could ever hurt me. It was almost like I'd had my heart broken, which little girls do get their heart broken from their dads. I wasn't present to it at the time, but in all the work I am now, it was a way of making sure no one could hurt me and I could be in control of the situation. So if something wasn't fantastic, I'm like, I'm out.
If this doesn't go the way I think it should or I want it, I am out of here.
Yeah. So we both had that. And so I decided on my own volition to play a game.
We got a runner.
Whereas like every time I wanted out, I would lean in instead.
You would do the opposite.
I would lean in, and I was like, let's just play this game, because the other hasn't resulted in anything that I've wanted relationship-wise.
Right.
So what if I lean in every time I want to run? And it was just a game I decided to play with myself. And hey guys, we are a brand new podcast, and we really want to get so many of these amazing tools and techniques into the world. And for now, it's Paul and I sharing the male and female perspective of all the things we coach on. But we really want to elevate that and bring in all sorts of amazing people that can really have you see the world in a different way to create more freedom in your lives.
Yes, and one of the ways if you could do a big favor for us, one way that really helps is if you just subscribe.
It's free, and then it allows us to really tailor things to what you need. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear about, and we will really listen to what it is that you're requesting.
Yes, that's the biggest thing you can do that helps us the most, is to hit that subscribe button and share this with someone. So
forever grateful.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, welcome everyone.
Welcome to a new episode of the Freedom Alchemist Podcast. We are doing this to help people create freedom in their life, whether it's through body, mind, or connection. So
no matter what kind of comes your way, that we'll be sharing little stories. This is going to certainly be about a 30-minute, because we have a hard out at 11. We have Pilates at 11. And so no matter what happens in your life, can you turn your circumstance around and actually create freedom, or do you have to remain a victim to it? And so that's the stories that we share. The backdrop of our relationship and our company and as parents all sort of points towards, how do you create freedom, right?
Because we're freedom junkies. So we're always how could this be easier? How could this be more fun? How could this feel more free? And today we're going to talk about something that is very dear to our heart, literally on many levels, which is the conversation around commitment equals freedom. And this is multi-layered, multifaceted, but we're going to frame it from like our relationship, because so many people that know us or follow us think that we had this hallmark relationship and we met under a gazebo and professed our love and everything's starry and magical. And
under a gazebo, because every Hallmark movie has a gazebo.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So we wanted to just really dive into what it actually was and is, and what we had to navigate to really choose each other and choose commitment to have the freedom we wanted in relationship as well.
That's right. And without this tool, we probably wouldn't be together. This story really does really share the turning point, really, in our relationship. So we also have a podcast on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. It's The Freedom Alchemist, and you'll see Kate Austin, Paul Green. She's got a peace sign up in it. Go, if you're watching this or you want to save it later and listen to it, that would help us if you can subscribe over there.
Subscribe.
And if you're hearing this, you can share as well. If you're seeing this, rather, wherever you're at, you can share it with somebody so someone else can share.
And our subscribers, we can make sure we're covering the sorts of things that you really want to hear in order to really create freedom in your own life. So
your accent comes out sometimes and it's so cute. She's got a couple of them. She's got this.
I know. I got British. I got fully Australian.
She is Australian.
I'm a chameleon when it comes to language, but a total straight out, this is who I am when it comes to lifing.
The
truth. So shall we? Well, let's start this conversation from the beginning of our relationship. And Paul invited me to this. It was actually a landmark thing. And we were pretty new at that stage. We were figuring it out. And he invited me to this thing. And there was a program. And I'll think about it like at the end of the presentation. And he was, no, I want you to do it, and paid for me. So it was like a $600 thing. And I realized I had no ability to receive. So I literally almost vomited. I had to go to the bathroom. I didn't know how to deal with it or process it. It was really intense for me to even accept that. Even it was such a loving, beautiful gesture, and I was in no way, shape, or form at a place where I knew how to receive that sort of thing. So that's where it started. And I went to that. And that program was all about really removing so much of the stuff we create so that you can actually be with someone as new entities rather than bringing in all your past and all your other relationships and all your stuff into the mix. So that was a really basically, let's clean and clear the slate type of thing. And then we sort of dived straight into our relationship. And side note, it took us 4 times to figure it out. We kind of broke up 4 times because we were both, I'm not really wanting anything. And freedom was very important to us. And
commitment was terrifying. I had just come out of a very long relationship that it was a young marriage. I was married very young, and it was very long, and it wasn't confining. It just wasn't good. It was just it was certainly the wrong. It was confining in a lot of ways. It was terrifying for me to think about committing long term or to really deeply commit to someone, because I committed so young and it didn't work out. It was the opposite of what I expected or had made up that it would be marriage.
I think for a lot of people, and I'm speaking for you here, so tell me if I'm wrong, but for a lot of people, especially when you're deeply in the Christian faith, if you go through a divorce, it really is a huge failure on so many levels. Oh,
you let God down. You let down the promise to God. You let down the promise to your partner, to your partner's parents. There's a lot of guilt layers to it, and anybody watching who's probably been through a marriage that didn't turn out, or is divorced. Fortunately, there was a lot of compassion, and there was love, and there was good time with Oliver, and so I think. But that was also because I made her go do. I asked my son's mom to go and do Landmark because I had just done it. It's this weekend that literally helps you stop being a victim, basically. That's a big part of the program.
And he hadn't done any of it until we got back to. So they did that then, and that really helped them navigate the completion. And then just found it again just before we got together. Thank the Lord, because we would never have made it without that, because we then dived deeply into the work and then did communication programs and things like that to actually have our communication land with the other person, not with some person of our past that we're like vomiting onto, which is what most people do. And most people are not present that they're doing that and wonder why the other person can't read their mind, or reactive or triggered, or all of these things. And that's what most people are doing in their lives.
Right, because whatever story you make up about something that happens in your past, you carry that with you, and then you have a new person in front of you, and they do something, and you're like, oh, well, that's just like how Brenda did it. And so the poor person there, their intentions or what they did may not have anything to do with that, but you're projecting your stories and your past and your pain and your failure and your guilt and your disappointment and your hopes and your dreams all onto this poor person, and they don't even stand a chance to feel free or to live who they are.
Or to show up as anything different, because we create people with our language. So if you're like, oh, you're like my ex who cheated on me, he said things like that, or she did this, then you create that person, and then it's just like oh, this doesn't feel good. That's true. Everyone's like, I wonder why relationships don't work or dating doesn't work. It's how your communication or how you're creating the other person as well. And so if you come in with a bunch of baggage, which, hey, we all got it. Like, are you present to, I just said something because I felt pain. I felt a trigger and I felt a trigger of pain, but that actually has nothing to do with you. Right. So I just want to take accountability and responsibility for what I just said because I don't mean it that way. How quickly can you catch yourself rather than blame the other person? That's a whole thing, and it's a dynamic, and it's part of why we do what we do and teach what we teach, because really that is this it's such a beautiful thing to have communication that can land with the other person and take full accountability for your life, especially in this era when accountability is not valued.
And so after working together in part, a turning point was we went to, was it a seminar?
I think we were supporting one of our friends' sort of graduation, and the person leading it asked a full room, I'm talking 250 people, asked who has a butt. So it's like, I want to work out.
I'm sitting on one right now.
I want to work out, but I want to sleep till noon. So it's like, you want to be fit, but you want to sleep. You want to do well in your business, but you don't really want to do the work. There's all of these butts, right? And so he's like, who has a butt?
I want 6 packs, but I want to eat a pizza or whatever. Everyone stood up and said something.
Well, not everyone. The people that are really in it. And this guy will always be in the front row with his hand up.
You know why? Because it's a time hack. If you're sitting in a situation and you want it to go fast, then you get engaged and you play the game. Mm-hmm. If you want it to go slow, then you observe other people play the game. And for me, freedom is so important that being in a room with fluorescent lights, I want to get out of there as quickly as possible. And so if I participate, time just goes like that. So it's, for me, it's survival in a room. I just want out. So I'm like, let me play the game so time goes quicker. And I like playing the game. I don't like observing other people play.
Yeah. And so what he said in a packed room, and we're like, I don't know, a few months in, and he's like,
you might want to tune out for this part.
I want commitment, but I want freedom. Right?
That was my butt.
That was his butt.
I had commitment and freedom as in opposition with each other.
But he didn't know this at the time. It was a blind spot. So he says that, and then Paul gets chosen to come to the front of the room. And for most women, that would be like, oh my goodness, because it sounded like, I don't really want to commit to this person sitting right next to me.
Well, he even looked at you as, you two need to talk.
And so I was really like, all right, here we go. And so he got up and unpacked it with Paul a bunch. And at the end, he was
I got
like,
free one-on-one coach. Time wasn't free. I was free.
And at the end, he said, you guys need to have a conversation. Now, we were living together at the time, I guess, when we maybe a few more months in than what I said, but we were living together in Topanga. It was a long drive. We had driven there separately because we'd come from separate places. And so I called him and we had this conversation, and I said, what does commitment mean to you? And he said, basically confinement and ball and chains and terrible jail, basically. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm really sorry that is your experience, because it doesn't mean that to me. And so we really got to unpack that commitment meant confinement for Paul. It didn't mean commitment. And fast forward to, I think maybe 5 days later, and he was working on a project where he was, for ALS, was doing
It was a really cool, I was doing a fundraiser and a lot of artists donated their beautiful art, and then we did an auction, and it was at the hangar in Santa Monica. Hallmark was involved, and all of my co-stars came out to support, and we raised 150 grand, I think, in this window of an auction. It was a virtual. My friend Russell still has a picture in his office that he won at the auction. And I'd never put together a project. And one of the structures we were learning was how to build a team, so you're not the hero, victim, martyr of the story and exhausted and tired. You create a vision and you find other people who also have a similar vision, and you enroll them and you encourage them to fulfill what they want to do through your vehicle. Mm-hmm. So you're not just there, I need this event to be perfect.
I'm going to work my butt off
and I need everybody to think I'm like a soldier for AL. And none of that. It took away all the grossness around it and just had me step back. And when I committed to just doing what I promised I was going to do every day. And he had
a coach around it. And so
that coach was awesome. He looked like Philip Seymour Hoffman.
He was a special human. And so he came to me 5 days later, all excited. And he's like, the more I just commit to this project, the more things just happen magically. And I was like,
didn't I say freedom in that moment? Didn't I say the more freedom I experience with it? No?
It's possible, but
so.
Probably not magic. But I was like, isn't that
interesting?
And he's like looking at me like, what? And I was like, well, we just discussed that in relationship equals confinement for you.
Yeah.
But when you commit to anything else, freedom. And so he was a big aha moment.
Sure.
And so that was the beginning of unpacking the blind spot for Paul. It wasn't because to guitar, if you committed to all other things, it was freedom.
Yeah.
But with relationship, it was confinement. And so these are things that you need to understand what your blind spots are, because it's not blanketed commitment equals confinement. It was just into relationship.
And that was the big brain. That was like, the more I commit to my movies or scripts, the more free I am on set or in front of a camera. The more I commit to a song or to music, the more free I am to like really embody the song and play. And the more I commit to my body, whether it's yoga or weights, the more free my body. And somehow in relationship, the more I committed just was like, goodbye freedom. Hello darkness, my old friend.
So anyway, so we got to, and then we would get to this place. It's our relationship. Geminis, like, we don't follow that fully, but Geminis are the twins. So they have conflicting things going on anyway, where it's like, this one wants to do this. So there's all of that. And so we would always get to this place where we called Siberia. And the great thing through all of this work is we were able to name it the second. So it was like when we were both grossed out by each other and both of us wanting to run, because that was one of our things where it's like, I don't want to be in this. It's safer to run rather than to bear, like just lean into whatever this ugly yuckiness is. And so we started naming it. Well, here we are in Siberia again. And just naming it started moving the conversation, getting it out of stuckness, and actually we could laugh about it, or we could just naming it started moving it into a direction where we could find some sort of resolution, or listen to the other person slightly differently so that we could get through this icky part. And that was a really big game changer for us too, just having a word that we could name when we were in that horrible place. You're in a place where you feel you've maxed out everything that you know how to do, and you're still in a bit of a Groundhog's Day. You are a prime person for really stepping into what it is to have a coach. Someone that can show you a fresh perspective and show you who you are as your greatest self without all the stuff and the sabotages that get in the way of how you think of yourself.
That's right, because a lot of folks have blind spots. It's hard to sometimes see the areas that you don't know. And Kate and I have many different coaches and people that we look to help us see the areas that we can't necessarily see. So you might be at a place in your life where you're like, I've tried this on my own, and now I need some support. And Kate and I have a really great system of engaging and helping support you and connecting you to a life that you truly want and love.
And we truly believe everyone can heal as long as they're in the right environment to do so.
That's right.
And not just heal, really elevate to the person you've always known you should be, but haven't quite got there. Then talk to us, reach out and see, and we can see if we're a great fit to work together.
Great. So back to the podcast. At the very end, in the description, you'll see a place where you can connect with us. All right. But so then I decided to commit.
Well, a little game I played as well, because I'd had a lot of long-term relationships, and I always found myself like making sure I had one foot out. And I'm pretty sure it's connected to, having a father that wasn't really present or showing up for me, past, that's a whole nother story, but I'm pretty sure it was my way of keeping power, or like making sure no one could ever hurt me. It was almost like I'd had my heart broken, which little girls do get their heart broken from their dads. I wasn't present to it at the time, but in all the work I am now. But it was a way of making sure no one could hurt me and I could be in control of the situation. So if something wasn't fantastic, I'm like, I'm out. Like, you're not going to, and like Paul also had the I'm out. So we both had this I'm out thing.
Like, if this doesn't go the way I think it should or I want it, I am out of here.
Yeah. So we both had that. And so I decided on my own volition to play a game.
We got a runner.
Whereas like every time I wanted out, I would lean in instead.
You would do the opposite.
I would lean in and I was like, let's just play this game because the other hasn't resulted in anything that I've wanted relationship-wise.
Right.
So what if I lean in every time I want to run? And it was just a game I decided to play with myself. And there was I remember one argument in the kitchen, and this also was a total game changer for us. But like in relationships, when things are sort of, you get in the ick, someone starts picking at the other one, like at all the things they don't really like, right? We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
You do this and you do this and you do this and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty normal for relationships. And instead of me retaliating with all the things that I didn't like, I just said, well, I just love you and I wouldn't change anything about you. But I was like arguing with him, but I said those words. I wouldn't change a thing about you. And it was a massive like disruption in Paul's brain. It was like a brain scramble, especially if you're picking at someone, you're expecting a fight, right? Or expecting them to run or expecting whatever. But it like totally scrambled his brain and shifted something because it was a disruptor. And from that moment, we have never picked at each other. Like we never have. Sometimes we're like, I do this and I do this. Like we feel like we show up and do certain things, and that's our that's a wounding that of way before this relationship. But we never say you do this or you're this or you, like we never have done that. And I think that is such a savior in any relationship, because when you start picking at each other, it's a really slippery slope, and it's really hard to not say super hurtful things that then like just really penetrate on deep levels, and it's hard to come back from that. Even if you're like, sorry, I was angry, I didn't mean it. It's like, well, something in you did mean it, otherwise you wouldn't have said it. And so and then there's been many times throughout our relationship where Paul's just like, I wouldn't change a single thing about you. And it's so beautiful. It's like when you can just be with someone for everything that they are and everything that they're not, it's a really powerful thing. So there's a couple of games and brain scrambles that really helped our relationship. And had we not been in a self-improvement type of environment, I wouldn't have come up with that concept. It's like you have to put yourself in the game of starting to shift like your old ways of being and old thoughts in order to come up with these solutions that can really echo throughout your life. So
the thinking in the mind that got you into the problem is you're not going to be able to use the same thinking and mind to solve the problem. You actually need an upgrade of the way you think in order to solve a new problem, or else you'll literally loop for your entire life. Like the same pattern, the same relationships, the same tone and quality of experiencing
same amount of money, the same, all of that.
Same weights on the scale. Like you literally need the software upgrade to start thinking bigger, different, and being challenged. And we were very challenged in this program.
Yeah.
And that's what a good relationship is too. Like you're not a challenging person. Like you're not a storm. You're not aggressive. You don't actually make me have to work on being still because you're so still and you hold so much space. What's really interesting though is like there's so much growth as a human if you're in a relationship where your partner's a really good mirror and reflection and sounding board and teacher and mentor and all of it. And so you can go meditate for 5 years and you might learn something, but you learn a lot more being in partnership with a good person that's willing to call you out on your bull crap.
Yeah, or even if a partnership of someone that's not great, but that's ready to learn or ready to change or ready to look at things.
Sure.
So, and just something on what you were saying is like you stay the same weight, same this. the issue is you don't stay the same. When you ingrain these habits, you get worse because you get more jaded. You start eating more. You do it. So the weight either stays the same or gets more. Your issues in relationships get bigger. The divide becomes wider. All of that
gets worse.
Yeah. It's like, it gets worse. If you don't look at it if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's what happens. So it's like, it's really being like, hey, I don't know everything and I'm ready for some new perspectives, whether that's books, whether that's coaches, whether that's programs, whatever it is. Or a partner, that's also ready to but we wouldn't have done it on our own. We needed help.
We did need help. You're right, because we would have just kind of repeated the same.
We didn't know we needed help, but that was the environment that presented when we got together, and it really created the spaciousness for us to see each other. Because I didn't see this man when he was cute and fun and wonderful and all the things, but I didn't know his heart. I didn't know who he was as a man. I didn't know I've fallen deeper in love with him as time went on because I discovered who he was as a man, as the depth of who he is. And that's what love grows. It's not the honeymoon phase is amazing and then everything's shitty after that. Let's delete that. Sure, some people have fusion when they meet, and often that's trauma bonding, I'm sorry to say, when it's that sparky at the beginning. Sometimes it is, but it's something you build on, and you want to build on the depth of your conversations and what you create together, rather than just it's so sexy and fun and fireworks and gazebos.
So in 8 minutes we got to wrap this up.
Well, hang on, I was thinking we should do part 1, part 2.
Well, no, let's tell this.
Well, no, let's do part 2 right after. Yes,
we can just tell the story of
no, because that is such a good story. I don't want to rush it.
Well, then there's the story of when I went to buy the ring. We had our biggest. Okay, we're going to tease that. We're going to wrap this up. We have a part 2 of the Commitment Equals Freedom of this podcast and of this live. And so, so in to wrap this up, the more you commit to something, the more freedom you will experience. And if that means you commit to the wrong thing, it doesn't matter, because you'll get there quicker. Meaning, if you're half in, half out, you'll be in this abyss of no man's land, trying to be should I don't know, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. You'll be in hell. But if you just commit, even if it's the wrong thing, you will figure it out. The harder you commit to it, you'll be whoa,
this is not right for me.
This is not right. But if you're dibble dabbling, then you may not ever get the slap in the face or the
big resounding yes or the big resounding no. If you super commit to a person, like a relationship, and you're going all in, and that you're holding nothing back, but that is not reciprocated or felt, or they're not meeting you in any way, then you're oh, it's a no. You don't. And unfortunately, in relationship, when people I've already put a year in, I just got to keep going.
It's pot committed, poker. You're
I don't want to waste any more time with a new person. That might be worse. I'm just going to keep going.
Just gonna knuckle it out.
And one day they'll figure it out. And very occasionally that does happen.
More not than often.
But most of the time it doesn't. If they can't meet you in any way, shape, or form, besides a 10% when you're doing 200 or 190, it doesn't mean. And that's another thing. That's another cool thing is relationships isn't 50-50. It ain't. It's 100-100. It has to be. And then sometimes someone's 120 while the other one's 80. There's gonna be times where you just can't give what you need to give. And as long as the other person can show up and be there, that's the key. I remember listening to this couple that were 100 or something, and they'd been together for 80 years or something. And they said, what is the magic? What is it?
Were they French? What is the magic?
Magic? What how
magic?
Tell us what the formula is. And they said so simply, one of them said, we just didn't fall out of love at the same time. I think that really says it all, because we're human beings and you do fall out of love. You fall in love, you fall out of love. It just is what it is. Depending on whatever's going on in your mental state, in your body, it doesn't matter. So you can fall out of love and then want to blame the other person. Yeah. But if the other person can show up for you and not get butthurt about it and really just be a container for you to have your wobbles and like to like find yourself again so you can step back into the relationship, then that's when you have a powerful partnership where you can support each other through a place. And they might say horrible things like Paul, like he's tried to run
and that's times. Our time. Let's look at the time. I gotta make a shake. We have that.
Many times in our relationship he's been like, oh, you know, I just don't want to hurt you.
That's a good narcissistic line right there.
And I'm like, buddy, I'm good. Like, you are extraordinary, and if we don't make it, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Because I know that about myself. I'm a very strong, empowered woman, and I know that about myself. But should we leave it at that moment? There is a new part to that. So
we're gonna leave it there.
Tune in for part 2
next week at this time. So 10 o'clock Pacific. We're gonna do the live stream, and the point of this is to make sure that what we're doing is creating like really great video, but also we're in the background, we're recording audio for our Apple iTunes and for Spotify, because a lot of people do listen that way. I also have another podcast called The Grass is Greener with Paul Green. This one is definitely focused on freedom and how you can bring freedom to your confinements and how
see it from a male and female perspective. You know?
Mostly female though. No, she lets me talk. Like when the cameras are off, it's all me talking. Can't shut me up.
It's kind of true.
Awesome. So for the Freedom Alchemist Podcast, please subscribe there. Also, our YouTube is Freedom Alchemist. You can see it. Facebook, please share and do all that stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
In the meantime, till next week, just look for areas that you can do the opposite of what you've done for 50 years and commit, meaning like just powerfully choose something instead of like, I don't know, just choose it and watch the freedom come. Like committing does create freedom. So if that's a way of eating for you, you're like, I just have sugar once in a while. Just like go off your sugar for 30 days, commit and experience freedom.
Yeah, and people are like, oh, that's too hard. You know what's too hard? A lifetime of sugar that then creates all the health issues.
Yeah, choose your heart.
Choose your heart,
mate. Okay.
Mate.
Okay. All right. We'll catch you next time. Freedom.